You're listening to the Mystic Paranormal Podcast with your host, Sean Walkers. To reach Sean, visit www.mysticparanormal.net. Ghosts, demons, time travel, it's all right here on Mystic Paranormal. Now here's your host, Sean Walker.
Alright, well, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, wherever you may be. I am Sean Longford, and you're listening to the Mystic Paranormal Podcast. Tonight, guys and girls, I'll tell you what, we got an interesting show. Something I've always been fascinated with, I'm sure a lot of you have been too. Demons, exorcisms, demonic activity. And talking to us about that tonight is going to be Rita. Rita, how are you doing today? Or tonight?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I was doing real good until I got a phone call from you saying that you felt some dark energy around me or something.
Yeah. Actually, I should have realized it earlier, but I was just been kind of busy and I was kind of ignoring it.
Mm-hmm.
But last night, I was told I have certain gifts, and my guides were telling me that I was going to have a lot of protection around me, which doesn't surprise me. For what I do, they're always around me.
Right.
But I didn't realize the extent of it, and then this afternoon, I got a message from my guide that there was a lot of darkness that was around you because of this show tonight, which I've had this happen during other shows as well. So I just wanted to call and warn you and take care of it as best we could beforehand.
Right, well, I'll tell you what, I appreciate that. And I took the steps that you asked me to do with the salt. I thank you for blessing that. And going around and burning incense in the house and opening up the windows and hopefully clearing everything out of here.
Good. Excellent.
So I'll tell you what, Rita, let's begin the show by, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll get into the demonic questions and all that good stuff.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm Reverend Rita, as you mentioned, and I'm the director of Southern Paranormal Research Society since the year 2000. I'm a lead exorcist for the Confraternity of St. Michael the Archangel, Order of Exorcists, and I'm also the senior exorcist for Celtic Cross Foundation of Ministry, Celtic Templar Rite, Sacred Order of Exorcists.
Nice. And I got all those awards and those certificates you got up on the on our website, mysticparanormal.net. Yeah, you definitely got credentials, that's for sure.
Thank you.
How many cases, we're going to get into this for a minute, but how many cases do you think that you've been involved in? Or do you know it right offhand?
I don't know the exact number. I do know it's over 200.
Wow.
I'm going to say it's probably in the neighborhood of 240, right in that area.
Wow, so you've seen some stuff. So,
oh yeah.
What got you into the paranormal? Let's start off there.
Well, it was actually an experience I had when I was 5 years old. I was living up in Minnesota at the time, and I have a small family. It was my mom, my dad, my brother, who is a year older than I am, and myself. And I was pretty poor growing up. And we had a house that didn't have any air conditioning, so all we had was like a box fan type thing, and it was in the middle of summertime. I don't know if it was July or August, but it was really hot during that time. And what would happen is when we would go to bed, my parents would put the box fan in the doorway for us to keep the air moving so we could sleep, and then when they went to bed, they would take the fan and take it down to their room.
Okay.
So one such night, they had put us to bed, and I had been sleeping, and then as soon as they took the fan away, I woke up, and I was just hot, and I couldn't sleep, and I was just laying there, and it was dark. It was real dark. I don't know what time it was. I don't even know if I could tell time at that, during that time, but I remember laying there under, my bed was over by a window, and I was just waiting for some breeze to come through, and I heard footsteps coming down the hall. Now, it was not unusual for my parents to get up in the night and come look in on us to make sure we were okay. And so I expected one of them to show up in the doorway at any minute. And I heard the footsteps come, and they stopped in the doorway, and there was nothing there that I could see. And I just remember my heart pounding really fast, and I was scared, and I didn't say anything. I didn't want to, bring any attention to myself. And I looked over to see if my brother was awake, if he'd heard it, and I couldn't. He looked to me like he was sleeping over across the room. And I just laid there for the longest time, just scared to death, my heart beating out of my chest. And
wow.
then after a few minutes, I thought maybe it had gone away because I hadn't heard anything more. And all of a sudden, there was a booming voice, and I mean booming. Everybody in the house should have heard it. And I heard this little old woman's very strong voice say, "You kids, stay out of my piggy bank money." Now, I know that sounds so stupid and funny, but I didn't even know what a piggy bank was.
Right.
And it just terrified the heck out of me. So I, dove under my covers, and I just laid under there for I don't know how long. I never heard the footsteps. I waited for my parents to come running in and my brother to wake up. I mean, this thing was like right at the end of his bed, but nobody heard it but me.
That's
about a month later, we moved away.
That's scary, and it reminds me too because I also grew up in a haunted house. And
oh, did you?
Yeah, I did, and I reference it to the greenhouse just because it was a greenhouse on the outside. And I know exactly what you're talking about, laying there in bed and feeling something and just hoping nothing happens. And in my case, something did, but not till I ran downstairs. But in your case, you actually heard a voice. I mean, exactly what you don't want to happen happened. I understand where you're at there. For a kid, I was a little bit older than you. I was about 10 years old, but still, that's a pretty dramatic experience.
For as much as it scared me, it also piqued my interest. I wanted to know, what was that? How did this thing happen? What the heck? And when I was growing up, because I'm just about to turn 54 years old, so I'm no spring chicken. But back then, you didn't have paranormal TV shows. You did not have, all the stuff that you see now. It wasn't that way. Even books and that, there were very, very few.
Yes.
And I would go to our library, at school and stuff, and I would look for books on ghosts and stuff like that. And it's been a lifelong, ever since that, interest of mine to find out what was this, how does this happen? And back then it was either Casper the Ghost or it was Hans Holster book was about the only two things you could find on ghosts.
Right. That or Scooby-Doo maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
That's about it. So I understand, you got into the paranormal activity, or you got interested in it, I should say. What made you decide to say, you know what, I'm going to look into demons? What made you do that? That's a big upgrade.
That's a huge upgrade. I have spent my entire life staying away from the darkness. When I started out with this, it was estimated you probably had a 5% chance of actually running into a demonic being. Okay. 5%. And now if somebody would ask me, I would say you've got about a 75% chance. There's that much more darkness now than there was back when I started. But what got me to do this was, like I said, I've done everything I could to stay away from the darkness. If I would get a case that I suspected might be demonic in nature, I would find someone who handles those type of cases. I would not put myself or my team or anybody in that situation. I wanted nothing to do with it. And I've had groups. Like I said, this happened with the paranormal experience started at 5. I had my first group at age 11 and had groups ever since I was 16. And so, it wasn't. I've been doing this for a very long time, like 30-some years, helping people with paranormal stuff, but I would stay away from demonic.
Okay.
And something started to change. When I moved back to Alabama, I was living in South Georgia, and my parents got to the point where they were needing some more help. So I came back, and I really thought about not starting another group. I've had so many groups, and I just wanted a chance to let somebody else take all the headaches on, but I could go and actually help people. That's what I wanted to do. And when I got back here, I started looking for a group. And every single one of them that I saw, they really didn't do anything to help people that were having a problem. They would go in and document whatever evidence they could get, which is what I call for bragging rights.
Yeah, you're right.
But they didn't actually do anything to help the people. And that, I didn't want to be a part of that. So I did start another group. Well, the very first person that I joined my group is still a teammate of mine today. And
nice.
She's very special, too. She's got gifts as well. And actually, everybody that's in my group has gifts. And we use them all. We get our information all in different ways, put it all together, and we've got a big picture. And that's always worked for us. So what happened was, Colleen is the name of the girl that first joined my group, and she's still with me. And we were supposed to do a case in Alabaster, Alabama. And this was in 2014, I believe, or 2015. It was one of those. Anyway, I had been having this feeling for months coming up to this case that something big was changing. Every time we did a case, we would see stuff that nobody sees, that nobody else I talked to that did cases and stuff would see. We actually did one case and we saw the actual stairway to heaven.
Really?
We actually saw angels at one. And it was just like, I had never experienced this stuff outside of this group before. And I'm like, something big is changing here. And I had a feeling that I was being pushed into the direction of working demonic stuff. And I didn't want to do that. And it's like they were starting us out with the best of the best. But pretty much everybody knows if you see the best of the best, at some point you're going to see the worst of the worst. It's the yin and yang.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Can't have one without the other. And it's like, while it was really enjoyable seeing the best of the best and working with it, and it literally blew my mind, honestly, I knew that there was a point where we were going to start having to see the worst of the worst, and I didn't want anything to do with that. I dug my heels in big. It got to the point where, I actually wrote a 22-chapter book that I was going to get published. I wrote it in 3 months. I don't even remember writing chapter 8 when I go back and read it now. It was crazy.
Right.
It was just crazy. And I thought, well, I guess I'm supposed to get this published. Well, I kept dragging my feet about it. I didn't really want to get it published. And then all of a sudden my guy told me, this is not for you to publish. This is to remind you how far you've come. And it's like, oh, crap, they're still working on me. Okay. So it's like, oh, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And I was so nervous and scared. I did not want to do it. I stayed away from this all the time. I did not want to do this. And the people in my group, they kept telling me, I kept telling them something is changing, something is coming, and it's getting really big. I feel like there's a snowball coming down the hill, and I'm standing here, and it's getting bigger and bigger, and I'm going to get hit. And I don't know what to do. I don't want to do this. And they kept saying, look, you're ready for this. You've been doing this stuff for 30 years. You just need some confidence. And I'm like, no, you don't get it. I stay away from the darkness. I don't want to do that. So this went on for a few months, and the feeling just kept getting worse and worse. Well, we got this case in Alabaster, Alabama, and we were supposed to go do it. And it was Wednesday. We were supposed to go on Saturday to that case. Wednesday, I was really busy doing something, and all of a sudden I got to thinking, it came into my head, you need to get some dragon's blood, which is an herb that I sometimes use in cleansing.
Okay.
In order to do that, I was going to have to drive 45 minutes away to the store to get it, and 45 minutes back, and I really didn't have the time. And I tried it as best I could to push that on my head, that every few minutes it's like, you need to go get the dragon's blood. You need to go. And I'm like, no, I don't. I still got a stick of it. I went into my cleanse kit, sure enough, I had a whole stick of it. It's like, just knock it off. And
Right.
it kept on and kept on, and finally I just grabbed my keys, and I got in the car, and I went to Huntsville, and I got the dragon's blood. I came back. I wasn't happy. The phone rings about a half an hour after I get back, and it's the lady from Alabaster. And she says, hey, 3 of my kids are sick. Do you think we could put this off for a week? And I'm like, sure, no problem.
Right.
So I hang up the phone, and I'm going, you see, I didn't need it after all. 30 minutes later, Colleen calls me, the girl that's in my group,
Mm-hmm.
and she said, Rita, we need to do an emergency cleansing down at the stable. And I said, what's going on? She said, I was down there this morning. She said, there used to be angels posted on the corners at the stable. She said, but for the last month, she'd only seen one of them, and then for the last couple weeks, she hadn't seen any. She said that this morning she was in there, and there was a big black orb in the circle. And I'm like, okay, how big is this place? And she said 30 acres. And I went, oh, crap. That's why I had to get the dragon's blood.
Right, right.
So comes the weekend, and we're on our way there. It's a 2.5-hour drive for me. I've got another one of my teammates in the car with me, driving with me, and it's in August, and it is hot outside, and it is storming. Like every 30 minutes, I'm going through a pretty severe storm, and then it come out the other side, we're fine, and 30 minutes later, here's another one. I get 5 minutes from where I'm going, and I'm telling Ethan, who was there at the time, about this thing, about this feeling that I'm having, this anxiety that I'm being pushed in this direction, and I'm scared to death. I don't want to go there. And he just said, no. He said, you got this. He said, you've been doing this 30 years. You've got this. And I'm like, no, I don't think I do. And we just went through another really bad storm. We get on the other side, and I pull up into the property. I get out, and I turn to look at the property, and there's a big old rainbow over it. And I went, we got this. and I knew we did.
Right.
And so we go up, and 30 years prior to this, they had a brand new barn that they had built on this property. And one night it burned down, and it took all the horses and killed all the horses
that's
that were
sad.
in the barn. It was awful.
Yeah.
And to this day, the fire marshal does not know what happened because there was no electricity yet in the barn. It was brand new. And none of the hay even burned. But the barn burned down, and it killed all the animals.
That's
And
sad.
so that night, the lady that owned the place, Joyce, she went out to her kitchen to get something to drink. She was very distraught. And she said, she said, Rita, she said, there was this thing standing in my kitchen, and it was red in color. She said, and he looked at me, and he said, I can bring back your horses if you agree to follow me. And she said, I hate to tell you this. She said, but I actually thought about it for a minute. She said, and then I thought, no, you killed all my horses. And she said, I looked at him, and I pointed at him, and I said, you killed my horses. And she said, it hissed, and it went like a snake up the wall and out the window. And she said, that's when she called a priest. So a priest come out, he blessed the property, he blessed the houses and everything, and he placed an angel on each corner of the property. And for 30 years, the place has been fine. And then just recently, something happened, and that went away. So I said, okay. I staged everybody, got them in the house because that storm that we had just outran was coming up over the house now.
Okay.
I took this Joyce with me, and we started doing the cleansing. Now, I've done hundreds of cleansings, and I say about the same thing every time because it worked. So I went through, and I told Joyce, you can just repeat after me, or you can say whatever you want, but you've got to take your place back. I said, you've got to tell them to go. And so I started saying things that I never say. I've never said before. It came out of my mouth. It was in my voice, but I was sitting there thinking the whole time I'm saying this, where is this coming from? I never say this. This is great.
Right.
And it was powerful. And the lightning, the thunder, the crashing, oh my goodness.
Wow, you're really setting a scene.
I'm telling you.
Definitely. You should get a book out.
It's like, this is crazy. And so we get through, and Colleen walks up to me, and she says, and right about that time, as Colleen's walking up to me, the storming stops and everything. It's just done. She walks up and she said, we just saw it go out the window.
Oh,
and
wow.
Okay. She said, Rita, you're not going to believe what this thing looked like. And I said, what? Because she can see it. She's got the gift of sight. She can see these demons. She can tell me exactly what they look like, what they're doing to a person, everything.
Right.
And she says, this thing, she said, you know that what the old-time posters of Jack the Ripper, she said how he's like cloaked in darkness in a long dark coat,
Yeah.
a black top hat. She says, but they never have a face because they don't know who it is. And I said, yeah. She said, it looked just like that. She said, but when it turned and looked at me, it had razor blades for teeth. I said, great.
Oh, man.
So we got done with that. And Joyce says, now we need to go over to my daughter's house who lives across the pasture here. This place is a big old house. And she has been having a lot of problems this year. And I said, all right, let's get our gear, let's get going before another storm comes up. We start crossing over, and sure enough, here comes another storm. And I'm like, oh, no. So we hightail it over there. It's probably about a half a mile from her house.
Yeah.
And we just get inside, and I walk in, and it's like walking into a wall. It is so thick in there. It was just oppressive.
Right.
And we walk in, and I start getting stuff ready, set out and stuff, and the girl comes downstairs. And her name's Sissy, and she comes downstairs, and I said, Sissy, I said, why are we here? She said, she was obvious she'd been crying. And she said, oh, my life is just in shambles. She said, she said, at the beginning of the year, she said, my husband decided he was going to divorce me. He's trying to take away my son from me now in custody. She said, after 14 years of sobriety, I fell off the wagon. And she said, my house is going to go into foreclosure. And she said, I got a new job, and they caught me drinking on the job, and I've lost my job now, so I don't have any work. And she said, if that's not bad enough, last night I got picked up for public intoxication.
Oh.
And I spent the night in jail. She
Yeah.
said, I've hit rock bottom. And I said, okay. I can feel now where this is all coming from. I can feel what let the demons in. And it's like, okay. I said, we're going to have to take back your house. And we started going through the process. Well, that storm that was coming over us, it was over the house now. And once again, all the lightning, the thunder, the wind, the rain, you name it. And we're going through, and I'm having her take back the house. And one thing I do is once we get done doing the staging rooms and baptizing the rooms, we put down salt barriers. And I give them, symbolically, I give them a handful of salt. We open the front door, and I have them say, in Jesus' name, I cast you out, and shut the door. We get down there, and she's very emotional, and she's getting more emotional as we're going. We get to that point, and I put the salt in her hand. I open the door, and the thunder is crashing. The lightning is going. It's the wind, the whole 9 yards. And she falls on her knees and starts screaming, oh, my God, get it out. It hurts, it hurts. Oh, my God, it hurts. And I'm just, like, frozen in fear. This is my worst nightmare come true.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is what I've been trying so hard to stay away from. And now it's right in front of me. And I was just petrified.
What did you do?
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying, what did you do?
Well, Colleen heard Sissy screaming, and she comes in, and she gets down on her knees. Sissy's on her knees, and she's crying and screaming. And Colleen doesn't say a word, but she puts her hands on Sissy's back. And I'm standing there, and I'm saying, Sissy, you have to cast it out. In Jesus' name, cast it out. You have to cast it out. It hurts. Get it out of me. Oh, my God, it hurts. It hurts. And I just kept telling her, you have to cast it out. And meanwhile, Colleen still just got her hands on her back, not saying a word. I'm standing, as she's facing the door, I'm like at the side, so I can see, the side. She's looking out the front door, and Colleen is right behind her with her hands on her back. And all of a sudden, I see something out of the peripheral vision of my right eye, and it come down behind Colleen. And I look, and the only way I know to describe it is how hot pavement looks on a summer day, that wavy, shimmery...
Yes.
Illusion-like thing. And I'm like, I'm just like, I don't understand. And about that time, I looked in front of Sissy. She had the same thing in front of her, only it was tinged red. And I thought, oh my God, they're warring for her soul right here in front of me. And I was just, I don't know. I just kept telling her, you have to cast it out. And right about then, and the crescendo, oh my God, the thunder, the lightning, everything. Sissy all of a sudden finds it within her to say, in Jesus' name, I cast you out. She threw the salt out the front door, and it stopped. Everything stopped. The thunder stopped. The wind, the lightning, the rain, everything stopped.
Amazing.
And I'm just like shocked. And she's laying on the ground crying, and Colleen is dazed and confused and looking at me, and she says, what the hell just happened? And I just helped Sissy to get up, and I didn't even know how to process it all. I mean, it was just crazy.
I can imagine.
So we get done with that, and I don't know why, but I just knew that we had to go back to where the original barn burned down and set up a medicine circle and let everybody detox, get all the negative out of them from these two houses into the ground and fill themselves with God's white light. So we went up to the barn where the barn burned down, and on our way there, here comes another storm. And I'm like, oh, please, God, no. And I'm like, you know, you can see where the line of the rain is. We're fixing to get soaked. The wind is whipping our hair and everything else. And all I can think is, please don't let us get struck by lightning. Oh, please, God, don't let us get struck by lightning.
Right.
We get up there, and I set up this medicine circle, and every candle I light is blown out immediately, and somebody's going behind me lighting up. I get everybody inside the circle, and I close the circle with blessed salt, and I have everybody sit down, and I told everybody to imagine all the darkness in them, pushing it down, out through their body, and deep into the ground, and then fill themselves with the white light. It would energize them, make them feel better. So that's what we did. And it was weird because all of a sudden, the lady next to me, Joyce, the one from the original house we just did, she said, can you tell me what the color red means? And I said, I don't understand what you mean. Could you be more specific? And she said, like a red, purple, red orb. And Colleen said, oh, she said, you're probably picking up the medicine man that's in the circle here with us. He's got red leggings on.
Oh, wow.
And all of a sudden, Joyce starts speaking in tongues, and it was obviously Native American. And
wow.
We all just sat there, and I didn't say anything. Nobody said anything for a couple minutes. And then I looked at Joyce after she finished, and I said, that was beautiful, Joyce. Can you tell us what you said? She looked at me like I slapped her, and she said, I don't know what I said.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And we're like, okay. And about that time, I picked up my camera and took 3 pictures within the circle. And then I kind of felt like I was intruding, so I put the camera down. And in those pictures is this huge purplish red orb in each one of them, and it's moving around the circle, and you can feel the medicine man's hands on your shoulders giving you healing.
Wow.
People had tears running down. It was so crazy. And all of a sudden, it occurred to me, wait a minute, we've been sitting here a few minutes. This storm is raging all around us, but it's not in the circle. And I said, do y'all hear that? Do you see that? And everybody, it's like we all noticed it at one time. And you could see the trees were swaying. There's rain all around us. Thunder, the lightning, everything. But we looked up, and straight over us was open sky and stars shining down right on the circle.
That's
Everywhere
amazing.
else was storming.
That is amazing.
That was when I said, I get it, Lord. I get it. You've got my back. I'll do it.
So that's when you knew demons were your thing.
Yeah.
We got Lance Davidson is in the chat room. He's asking if you've ever worked with Ed and Lorraine Warren. That's actually pretty interesting because I know they did a lot of demonic stuff as well. Have you ever worked with them at all? Just a quick question.
I have never worked directly with them. I am very good friends with their grandson.
Okay.
And he does a lot of their work still, and I work very closely with him.
Okay, nice.
And I have actually had Ed come to me when Lorraine was having some trouble with up there where she was at, with demons were coming at her.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have, in an off way, I've talked to Ed before, but after he passed.
Oh, interesting. You know, I wanted to ask you this too, because you were talking about your guide, your spirit guide, or whatever it is. When did you first know that you had a guide? Like, what happened about that? How did you know, okay, I have this guide?
I started really opening up about 3-4 years ago. And that's when my gifts started to really make themselves present. And they've gotten a lot stronger in the last 3 years. But that's when I first, I had gifts when I was little, but I shut them down. And that experience I had when I was like 5, I think, is when I actually shut everything down because it scared me so bad.
Yeah. I can imagine 5 years old, something like that happening. Rita, what are demons, though? I mean, what are they? What is a demon?
Okay, that's a really hard question. Demons are fallen angels. The big ones are the fallen angels, but they each have their own little hierarchy of demons or minions or whatever you want to call them, their little armies under them. So it's like whenever we do an exorcism, for instance, sometimes we get the real big ones. And those real big ones will have a whole army hierarchy under them that are the ones that you end up fighting with to begin with. And once they're all gone and done is when you get to the actual big demon.
Okay. Before you actually get to Lucifer, Satan himself.
Yeah. Sometimes. Usually he just oversees, but sometimes it is him.
Wow. That's... I can't imagine dabbling in stuff like that and experiencing what you've experienced. I mean, and we're going to get deeper here as we go on, but I mean, a lot of people are out there ghost hunting right now. A lot of people claim, a lot of religious people claim that all ghosts are demons. Is that true, or could there actually be like people like you and myself that just simply passed on and you're seeing them?
Yes, there are ghosts and there are demons.
Okay.
Sometimes it's a little hard to tell the difference because we all take our personalities that we have in life with us when we pass. That's part of our energy that goes on.
Okay.
And so you've got to understand, yes, my little old grandmother is out there and she's wonderful and she likes to bake and she's, a really good person. But then you've got Jeffrey Dahmer out there too.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So you can have some spirits that are human, that are bad, that are mean, that are, it's sometimes hard to tell the difference. But as a general rule, a ghost can lift no more than 3 to 5 pounds, whereas a demon can lift 500 pounds and throw it and never break a sweat.
That's amazing. So demons were never human to begin with.
Absolutely.
So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
They were never human. No.
So like a Ted Bundy or someone that dies, they can't like become a demon because they were so bad on Earth or anything like that. I've always wondered that.
If they sold their souls, yes, they can. They can get to a point where they're like soulless.
Interesting. Wow. That makes me wonder, like, where do people like that go? Do you believe in, like, when people like that die, they actually go to hell or heaven or maybe they're lost in limbo? I mean, what do you think happens at something like that?
Each one is kind of a different case type thing. But those that have sold their souls, yeah, they belong downstairs, and that's where they go.
Right, because
Can Christians and like priests and stuff like that, they can't become possessed, can they? And the answer is absolutely yes, they can. But the difference is if your soul belongs to Christ, that's where your soul is going to go. The demons may get your physical body, but they're not going to get your soul.
Right. Okay, because I've always wondered, like, when I watch a lot of, like, serial killer documentaries and interviews, I just find it fascinating. And I remember watching Ted Bundy's last interview. It was the day before he got executed. And I'm just looking into the guy's eyes like, you're going to be dead in like 12 hours, and you're probably going to be going to hell, dude. I mean, that's... Yeah. I can't imagine that.
And they do. Okay, it's kind of, it's hard to explain, but from what I understand, from what my guide tells me, is if you've been given the gift of eternal life by Christ, and you come back into another lifetime and you do bad things and really, really bad things, you don't ever lose your gift of eternal life, but you will spend time down below. And once that time is done, then you will go back up.
Right. Okay, that makes sense to me. I could see where you're kind of a hybrid when it comes to like religion. You know what I mean?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, you're definitely a mixture, and I like that. Because when you hear about Jesus talking and preaching and doing all his different things, he wasn't a church really. He was just preaching what God told him to.
Absolutely. He did not embrace any one religion.
Yeah, so where does religion really stem from then? Is it, I always thought, you know what, maybe it's because Jesus always like prayed in groups and had a following. Maybe churches congregated because they thought, well, maybe that's what we got to do. We got to like get groups of people, and, the church has just exploded. They're everywhere.
Right. It's so hard to say because, like in the Bible, where it says, where Christ turned to Peter and said, "On this rock I build my church." Mm-hmm. I don't think he meant that literally. I think he meant I build my whole foundation. I build this. I build you all. I build. This is the meaning to me. That's what I think, and I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of people disagreeing with me. But that's what I believe.
Now, I was going to ask you if there's ever been a time where you felt that your life was in danger, and then you sent me this email of a case. Yeah. Why don't you explain that? Because I'll tell you what, reading that email was like, wow, dude, it doesn't really get too much powerful than that.
That was one time where I really didn't know if we were all going to get out alive. I really didn't. I have, for those that are friends with me on Facebook, if you go to Order of Exodus, Alabama, you join the group or whatever, you'll see I posted it in there, and you can actually read the entire thing. I'm going to condense it here because it would take too long to tell you the whole thing. But basically, what happened was I got a case from another group in Huntsville, Alabama, who don't do demonic cases, and they were pretty sure that this was demonic, and they wanted to know if I would take it. And I asked them what made them think that it was demonic in nature, and they said we did an experiment, and we asked him and his wife to come up to Huntsville. They live in Birmingham, and spend the night here and see if it followed them. And so they came up, and they got them a room, and they went to interview them, and they said it definitely followed them. They said this thing took the man over, and it was an obnoxious kind of a spirit thing. It scared them half to death. It drained their batteries within 2 seconds, pretty much. Yeah. It kept asking them, do you want to see a trick? Do you want to see a trick? And they kept saying, no, we don't want to see a trick. And by the time that they left there, I guess it really wanted to show them a trick. So it took the man and it threw him head first into the air conditioning unit, smashed his head into it like 3 different times.
Wow.
And they, ran out of the room. And they sent me tape that the wife had sent them of audio recordings she had made 6 months prior to this, where he was found asleep in bed, and he had 3 different voices talking out of his mouth, and you could still hear him snoring.
Wow.
And the voices were like 3D, and his eyes were closed, and yet it would say things to her like, "I can see you, daughter of Christ." And, it was really, really creepy.
Yes.
And I just knew that this case, if we took this case, it would change all of us. And it did, in a big way. I mean, it's right up there in the 5 worst cases we've ever done type thing.
Wow.
These people had been members of a particular church in Birmingham for 5 years. And they went and asked for help. And I guess at one congregation, one Sunday, they had gone to church. I think it was a Sunday. Maybe it was a Wednesday. I don't know. But they went when church was on. And his demon decided to show up and stood up during service and started pointing at people and telling them what their sins were. And
wow.
Apparently was right, because it scared everybody half enough that they ran out. And so they made an appointment to talk with their pastor. They wanted him to pray over them. And they set them up an appointment. They went there at the appointed time, and they left him sitting in the front. And they sat there and waited and waited and waited. And she said, like 20 minutes later, the pastor finally came out, and he led them down the hallway and out the back door of the church, where the police were waiting for him to give them a no trespass warrant and get them off the property.
What?
Now, if the church won't even help...
Oh, my God.
I had a real problem with that.
Yes.
I have an extremely big problem with that, because everybody I've ever sent to a church for help has never been helped. They've always been told, "I can't help you, you're not part of our parish," or "You're not our religion." They won't help. And that's why I am so adamant about helping these other people. I used to belong to another order that, honestly, the whole time I was with them, they never helped anybody. And it just did not sit well with me at all. And
Right.
That's when I decided I would find a church that felt like I did about this, that really wanted to help the people. And that's why I'm with the one that I'm with now. That their bishop, he backs us completely, which I'm very grateful for. But so anyway, so they were no trespass. They went home. I told them I would take the chase. We got ready. We got down there. I had something I don't generally ever do. We had 3 new people with us that have never been to an exorcism. And normally I would never bring somebody that's new into a really dangerous situation like that. But we absolutely had to have at least 8 people to hold this guy down. This guy was an ex-Marine. He was like 36 years old, so he's young and strong.
Right.
And he had already had a history of being taken to the psych ward. Well, let's see, this was March 5th of last year. So he'd already had 3 visits to the psych ward last year. And it took 6 cops to get him in the back of a car to get him there. And it's like we needed the help. So I tried as best I could to tell them, what they might expect. And we did Holy Communion, and we left and we went there. I get there, and the wife comes down and meets me at the car, and she says, "He's here, but it's not him. He was totally taken over about 20 minutes ago. He's in the bathroom with a knife."
What? Oh,
and I'm like, oh, dear God, okay. So we grabbed our equipment, and we went in. And we got everything set up, and it was the most horrific. If you could hear the tape that I did, most horrific sounds. He was screaming and plunging a knife through a door. 13 times he did this. It was like a 6-inch blade coming in, out the door and back into the bathroom with him. And I was thinking of The Shining, and I'm like, I'm going to lose my mind. Because it was just so surreal. And we got everything set up, and it's like, how are we going to get him out of the bathroom? Well, Colleen just started challenging him, and I should tell you so that everybody knows, when I do an exorcism, whatever I say, whatever I do, it's not coming from me. I can feel Christ when he steps in me to do these exorcisms. I'm just the vessel he uses.
Okay.
But whatever I say and whatever I do is what he's having me do. So I just roll with it, you know? I mean, you gotta, if you're gonna have faith and believe, you have to believe that he's going to protect you. And so I just do whatever he has me do. And in the same token, when Colleen, she gets back behind the possessed person, and she has St. Michael with her. And he works through her and uses her as a vessel. Now, I've had people ask me this before, so just for the benefit of anybody out there that does not know, the reason why people say, can't Christ just reach in there and grab them and pull them out?
Right, good question.
Why can't St. Michael just reach in there and yank that thing right out of them? It's because they're in a physical body. So our job is to get them outside of the physical body. That's why they hide in people. They pick a host, and then they put their talons in, and they hang on for dear life. Because if you don't get them out, they can kill you.
Right.
But our job is to get them out. Because once they're outside of the body, St. Michael takes his sword to them and has at it. So that's why they need us. That's the only reason they need us.
Okay.
Is because of God's gift of free will. And the person has to give over their free will in order for you to be able to get them out, because they believe they have legal purchase. You have to pretty much evict them. So it was, oh my gosh, make a really long story short, it was crazy. We have a chair, a metal chair that we have. They have chains on it and stuff just for cases like this, because he would kill us. If he could, he would kill us. We finally, Colleen started telling him to get out of that bathroom, to come out here and face us. The demon came out, I should say Kevin, the guy that had the demons in him, came out, and he's got this knife in his hand, and he's waving it at us and pointing it at us. And he's smoking a cigarette. He's putting it out on Kevin's arm, not flinching. One time he put it out on his tongue, didn't flinch. I started talking to him, and he didn't like that I was being smart with him. And I just told him, I said, you can see Christ. I said, because he's standing right here. And even though the demon would say, things like, oh, is he now? But he wouldn't look directly at me at that time. And he's throwing this knife from hand to hand, and I said, you don't need that knife. You know you don't. And he took that knife and he threw it into the ground, and it stuck like an inch into the wood.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, thank God that knife is in there now, out of his hand. He's still standing there, though, by the bathroom door. And it's a hallway that goes down the hall, and there's a framed picture sitting right here next to him. And we had taken and removed all the knives and sharp items and stuff like that out of the kitchen. So when he walked up, he started challenging Wayne. Well, he looks down the hall at her, first of all, and this was crazy. Because for anybody on my team, that I don't know if, I'm not saying that there was people that did not believe before, but if they didn't, they had absolutely no doubt by the time we were done.
Right, of course.
That demon looked down the hall right at Colleen and said, Michael, do you really want to do this again? We had nobody there in the place named Michael except St. Michael.
Wow. Wow, interesting.
And the demon clearly saw it. And he would start saying, maybe that's why you repeatedly lose and all this kind of stuff. He was trying to goad us on and everything. He walks into the kitchen to go get something, to get another knife, I think it was. And when he was up there, I took the knife out of the floor and I ran over and threw it out the front door. And he went in the kitchen looking for another knife, couldn't find it, came out and he said, so. He looked down at the floor, saw that one was gone, and said, so you've taken away all my apparatus. He said, so I'm just going to have to make another one. He pulls his hand back, and he smashes it into the framed picture on the wall, and all this glass breaks into a million pieces. Blood goes squirting out of his hands. The guy's barefoot. He's walking on it. He's cutting up Kevin's feet like crazy. Never has a reaction whatsoever to any of that. Takes this big shard of glass and starts walking over towards Colleen and St. Michael. And he kept saying, you want to see a trick? You want to see a trick? Finally, I'd had enough of him. And I told him in Jesus' name to sit in the chair because I could not get him in the chair any other way.
Right.
And he had to do it. So he went over. He didn't like it. He went over and he sat down. We got him chained. We started doing the exorcism. It was hours and hours worth of exorcism. And it was not easy. This thing was about, he was one of the higher ups. He was actually, the main one in him was actually what I would call an overlord of one of the levels of hell. I mean, he was pretty high up in the rank. He was a fallen.
Right. Now, they all have, like, certain names, too, that you're not even supposed to mention, right?
They do have names. They do. I do not go by the Catholic rite of exorcism in that asking them what their name is.
Right.
I've just found that I don't believe anything they say. So I'm not going to believe that's really their name that they're telling me.
Very true, very
so
true.
I don't. And that was the funny thing, was that this particular demon thought that I would go by the Catholic rite of exorcism because he kept trying to tell me that it wasn't his time. Because the one thing that the rite does do is it asks their name and what is the hour of their departure. And he kept telling me, you've got the wrong time. This ain't my time. And I kept telling him, if Christ is standing in front of you, telling you to go, it's your time. Period. End of question. And after a very long, drawn-out battle in which actually one of my people got possessed.
Wow.
And at one point, it got so hot in there, and I asked the wife if she would go turn the air down, because you're throwing out so much energy when you're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And she went down there to turn it down more. She had it down to 60, she said. She went down there and took a picture of it, and it said in the digital readout, 666.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
That's crazy.
It was definitely warmer than 66.6 degrees, or did it actually say 666?
It said 666.
Oh, my God.
It did. It sure did.
Now, a lot of people were asking about, like, was any of this videotaped? And I understand you do videotape, but for confidentiality, you gotta, you can't really reveal that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I videotape each and every one of them, just for, if no other reason, that if somebody gets hurt, I want to have a record of exactly what happened.
Right. Of course. Has there... Go ahead with this story, though, more of this. This is fascinating.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so it took a long time, and unfortunately, the wife also had demons in her. The land was cursed, so we not only had to exorcise this guy. This guy, turns out he had 3 legions in him. A legion is anywhere from 3,000 to 6,000 demons. So you're talking at least 9,000 that you're dealing with. So it took us several hours to get through this. Like I said, I've got the whole story on the website, basically word for word of what happened.
Right.
If anybody's interested, they can go read it. It's long. But what happened was we finally got down to the last one, and it started to make him turn into like a snake. I don't know how to describe it, but his eyes, like he had his eyes shut and they were squinted. His tongue was flicking out. He was weaving back and forth like a snake. If he was not in that chair, he would have slithered on the floor. He would have.
Wow.
At one point, this was a really calculated risk, but I didn't. It's just one of those things where you got to make a judgment call. And I knew before going into this case that this guy had a pacemaker. And I told him the biggest fear was that this thing was either going to short out the wires or was going to stop his heart.
Yes.
And at one point, when we got down to the bad one, he knew that he was wounded, that he was going to have to go. He looked at me and he said, "What are you going to do if I just stopped his heart?" And I was just like, this is my worst fear. This is my worst fear. But you know what? Everything that these people have gone through for the last 3 years, everything we went through with this guy, I just looked at him and I totally took him off guard. When I said, how would that be any worse than what you're doing to these people now? And he looked confused. And he said, wait, you, what? And about that time, I just hit him in the face with the holy water, and he just got off that topic completely. At one point, he tried to bite Kevin's tongue off, and I squirted him in the face with holy water, and it stopped him momentarily. He tried again. I did it again, and he stopped. But it was just... normally when I do an exorcism, it takes me a good day, sometimes 2 days, to get all my energy back.
Okay.
It's totally worthless the next day. After I got done with this case, by the time I got done exorcising him, the wife, our member, and taking the curse off the land, it was 3 weeks before I got my energy back.
Wow.
It was that bad.
Now, how can you distinguish, false demonic possession and authentic? Because there's a lot of people out there that do fake stuff for show, and then I'm sure there's a lot of authentic ones out there as well. But have you ever come across somebody that was faking it at all?
Not in the sense that you're talking. Maybe I should explain how I do things.
Okay.
What usually happens is if somebody needs help, they will reach out to me either through our website, or sometimes if they have my number, they'll take and text me, or they'll call me and leave a message.
What is your website, Rita? I'm sorry about that. I want you to put that out there again for anybody listening. What is your website?
Okay, you can reach me through southernparanormal.org.
Okay.
And you can just send a form, or if you have questions or anything like that, feel free to get in touch. But generally what happens is when I hear from somebody, I don't generally take the calls the first time they call.
Okay.
Because I want to talk to my guide and find out what's really going on with this person.
That's good.
Before I ever talk to them, I consult with the guide and ask them what's really going on here.
Okay.
And then I will call them, and generally I will tell them what is going on, and they're like, "Oh my God, how did you know that? How did you know?" And it's like it's just one of my gifts.
Right.
One of my other gifts is that when I see somebody that has a possession, their eyes will turn black. I see that happen.
Wow.
And it gets disconcerting sometimes when you're at a restaurant and you feel like somebody's looking at you, and you look up and there's these black eyes looking at you.
That would be kind of scary. Yes.
It's like, turn away, would you? I'm eating now.
That would be kind of scary. I wouldn't want to see that. I think I would lose my appetite, that's for sure. I wanted I'm sorry, go ahead.
But usually, like I said, I will converse with my guides and find out what's going on, what needs to be done, how many people there are possessed, if there's a curse, a generational curse, if there's a land curse, exactly what's going on, what is it doing to these people, how long has it been in them. I can get all that information, and then I can call Colleen, and she can tell me exactly what they look like, exactly what they're doing to the people. We've just got some really top-notch people that all get different information, and we have a whole picture before we ever go in.
Okay, so yeah, you definitely got an advantage. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you this too, because in the Bible it does state that we shouldn't dabble into like paranormal activity stuff. Now, I don't know if all of the Bible's correct. It was written by man, so I don't know what's correct in it and what isn't. But I mean, with all the ghost hunting shows on TV now, like you said, back in the day, it was hard to find anything even in a library. With all the ghost hunting shows on today, where do you think the world is heading? I mean, there's a lot of, digital recorders now for EVP, ghost boxes, PSV7, you name it, it's there. Where are we going as a society?
Unfortunately, we're not going in a good place. I happen to believe that technology has really sped up the really bad stuff. A lot of people don't even know that they can travel from phone to phone. I can be on the phone with somebody who's got this stuff going on, and all of a sudden I will get attacked. It can go through phones. It can go through computers. It can go through that. And anytime you're conversing, literally trying to make a connection with the dead, you're opening up a door. And anything can come through.
Right,
It could
right.
be my grandmother that you're talking to, but it might not be. It could be something bad, and there's a lot of bad out there now.
Mm-hmm.
And we do a lot of cases where people have opened up a door, not meaning to, but they have. And that's what we have to do, is go close it and take care of that stuff. I wish that people would be a little bit more informed on it. And then you've got those that are watching these shows. This is the part that I really have a trouble with. I don't mind people watching the shows for entertainment purposes.
Right, I agree.
Don't mind that at all.
I
don't
agree.
mind that at all. What I don't like is that they go, well, Taft does this, and in 30 minutes they've got it, all tied up in a neat little bow, and they're gone. I can do that.
Yes.
You don't know what you're doing. You're taking what you're seeing on TV that's meant for entertainment as gospel. And it's not. And you don't know. You just opened up the door on your whole family. I've got people, that say, oh, I'd love to do what you do. Can I join your group? And I'll ask them, do you have little kids? Yeah, I've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. Why would you want to bring this home to them?
Right,
I
right.
a lot. This is not something you do for fun. Not at all.
We got Troy.
It's not just,
I'm sorry, go ahead, ma'am.
no, I was just saying, if it's not your calling,
Right,
do it.
right. We got another guy in the chat room, Troy Danny Gamble, saying, does she think that the increase in paranormal activity is leading to an event or revelation of some kind? That's a good question.
I absolutely do. Yes. The walls are crumbling. I can't tell you how many times we've had to shut gateways to hell. And the thing is that we shut them up one place and they just move over to another place and start opening again.
Yes.
Yes, it's getting a lot worse, and there's a lot more demonic and darkness out there. It's scary, but yeah, it's really getting bad.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think I read somewhere in the Bible that or there's a verse in there or something that says during the end of times the paranormal activity or something like that will increase. It wasn't worded like that, but there was something about you know what I'm talking about. That kind of activity would increase, and it's definitely taking off right now. So we could actually be heading towards the end of times, actually, from what's going on.
I think we're already in it.
Wow.
I think we're already in it. I think we're past the second horn blowing. Actually, we're getting ready to really go into some really bad stuff. That's what I see happening. That's what I feel. I hope I'm wrong, but that's pretty much the information I'm getting.
Yeah, I don't say this to a guest much, but I hope you're wrong too.
I do too.
I really do. You've already mentioned about like people trying to ask to join your group and stuff, and you ask them about kids. But what would your advice be to anybody out there that's saying, you know what, I'm going to do this anyways. I'm going to go out and do this. I want to hunt demons. What do you tell them? What would you say to them?
Keep my number handy because you're going to need it.
Oh, that's good. I like that one. So they don't know what they're getting into. They think that it's all fun and games until they actually put the right.
Yeah. I mean, I have worked with priests that have been taken over.
Right.
This is nothing to play with. It's not. I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this.
It's okay.
I have run into people before that are of the cloth that think that because they wear the collar and the black cloth that it protects them. It does not. It puts a bigger bullseye on your back.
Hmm.
And just like tonight with doing this, anytime I do an interview like this, they are all over this because they don't want these words getting out. They do not want you to understand what I'm trying to tell you here. They do not want me helping anybody. And that's why you were attacked right before the show. The last interview I did with a lady down in Miami. It totally attacked all of her equipment. She did the entire show, and we had to do the show over again another day because it took out all of her audio.
Yeah, I'll tell you, right before this began, it began yesterday, I started getting these reports that were coming in saying, your account has been reported, to fix it, log on here. And I'm thinking, reported? Why is it being reported? I have no idea what I could have done. And I log on there, and all it did was take me to a page that said the rules and regulations of Facebook. So I typed in my password like it said, and it brought me to that page. Well, I got it again. I did the same thing. I got the same thing again earlier today. And then finally, Facebook contacted me, and they said that somebody from a town in Ohio had been trying to log into my account, so they locked my account. And I had to re-change my password and actually have them text me a code to where only I could get it. So, I mean, if somebody takes over my Facebook, I can always get it back. But they had to text me a code, and I had to change my password that way. And it just seemed like, and then, when I was going to do a Facebook video earlier, my audio at first wasn't there, and my phone would freeze. It's never happened before. Never.
Yep. And
I rebooted the phone, turned it back on. Everything was okay. And not long after that, I get a phone call from you, which was very strange because I ain't going to lie. A couple times during the show, I felt extremely dizzy. I don't know if that means anything to you, but there's been at least 2 to 3 times during the show where I had to kind of put my head down a little bit, like my head spinning for no reason at all.
Yep. Yeah. And I knew because my guys were telling me that they told me I needed to call you and let you know that there was a lot of mass darkness around you today because of this interview. And that's why I called you to let you know what you needed to do to try to expel it.
And, well, there's other things, too, where I've kind of suspected that there might be some sort of darkness being attached to me. Part of it's my conversion on religion. I don't want to really get into it or anything, but I kind of, I was baptized as a Christian. I went through all that, and then I started going through, the tarot cards and stuff like that. And I ain't going to lie. Once I started doing that, a lot of negativity seems to have followed me. I can't explain it. I mean, it's coincidence, maybe. Could be. But I ain't gonna lie, the negativity has really came on full force doing this stuff, which is, I don't know. Can't explain it. But I'll tell you what, Rita, we've already went through the show, believe it or not.
Okay.
We're already through it. If there's anything else that you would like to say out there to anybody, what would it be?
That please don't play with the darkness. It's nothing to play with. You think it's something that's funny or would be fun or whatever. It's not. People that get into this, Lord, it messes up their lives, and it takes forever to get them straightened out again, and you're always got a bullseye on your back once it gets you.
Yes.
You know, if you think that this is your calling, that this might be your calling, we need good people. We do. We need people, but just, you've got to weigh the good and the bad of it, because you are always under attack. They're always after you because of what you do. But if you have the faith that you will be protected by Father God, by Jesus, they will protect you. But you have to absolutely believe that, and it needs to be your calling. If not, don't play with these things, because I've got more work than I can handle.
Right. Real quick, though, I wanted to thank Michelle out there for actually, putting me in touch with you. I think it's been a great show. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a long time since I've enjoyed a show from beginning to end, and this was definitely one of them.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you, Michelle. It was very nice hearing from you, too.
All right, Rita, I'm going to let you go, and God bless you, and you have a good night.
God bless. Bye-bye.
All right, see you.